Translation. Perspiration, trembling, standing on end of one's bodily hairs, tears, faltering voice, fading complexion, madness, melancholy, patience, pride, joy and humility. These are various natural symptoms of the ecstatic love of Godhead, which cause the devotee to dance and float in an ocean of transcendental bliss while chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Srila Jiva Goswami, in his Priti Sandarbha, explains this stage of love of Godhead. Bhagavat Priti Rupa Vritir Mayadi Mayi Na Bhavati Kim Tarhi Swarupa Shakti Ananda Rupa Yad Ananda Paradinha Sri Bhagavan Apiti. Similarly, in the 69th text he offers further explanation. Tad evam Pritir Lakshanam Chitta Dravas Tasya Cha Roma Harshadikam Kancha Anji Jate Pi Chitta Rave Roma Harshadike Vana Ched Asya Sudish Tadapi Na Bhakte Samyak Avirbhava Iti Gyanitam Asya Sudir Namachanya Tapt Parya Parityaha Rityagaha Priti Tat Paryam Cha Ata Evanimita Svarbhaviki Cheti Tad Visheshanam. Transcendental love of Godhead is not under the jurisdiction of the material energy, for it is the transcendental bliss and pleasure potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Since the Supreme Lord is also under the influence of transcendental bliss, when one comes in touch with such bliss in love of Godhead, one's heart melts, and symptoms of this are standing of the hairs on end, etc. Sometimes a person thus melts and manifests these transcendental symptoms, yet at the same time is not well behaved in his personal transactions. This indicates that he has not yet reached a complete perfection in devotional life. In other words, a devotee who dances in ecstasy but after dancing and crying appears to be attracted to material affairs has not yet reached the perfection of devotional service, which is called Ashaya Suddhi, or the perfection of existence. One who attains the perfection of existence is completely averse to material enjoyment and engrossed in transcendental love of Godhead. It is therefore to be concluded that the ecstatic symptoms of Ashaya Shuddhi are visible when a devotee's service has no material cause and is purely spiritual in nature. These are characteristics of transcendental love of Godhead as stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 126. Saivai pumsham paradharmo yato bhaktir adokshaja ahoitakiya pratyata yayatma suprasidati. That religion is best which causes its followers to become ecstatic in love of God, that is unmotivated and free from material impediments, for this alone can completely satisfy the self. Om Gyantimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svabhadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sargjatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitam Scha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bando Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavanishwari Rishavanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Utrubhyascha Sindhu Bhayevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasdi Gaura Bhaktavrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. So here Lord Chaitanya is explaining to the bewildered Mayavadis, headed by Prakshananda Sarasvati, about the symptoms they are seeing. They're used to studying monist philosophy. So that means ultimately everything is from this same all-empowering spiritual source. There's nothing beyond that. And therefore their process is impersonal. And they study Vedanta philosophy very diligently. It's not like our philosophy. We may find Srimad Bhagavatam relatively difficult, and Bhagavad Gita even more so maybe. But when we try to read what came before that, it was the Vedanta Sutra. In the Vedanta Sutras, they're in couplets, and it's very tedious to understand them, what to speak about reading them. So this is what the Mayavadis do. Sometimes they'll try and change over to the Bhagavad Gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam, but then they quickly go back to the Vedanta Sutra, because it's hard work. It's hard work to get an impersonal understanding from those books. They manage it sometimes, they're pretty good. But and so generally when we're just in that mood of trying to understand things by our own mental power, it becomes really dry. And therefore they're seeing this person come into the assembly, and he takes off his shoes and washes his feet, and then he sits down in that same place, and he manifests an effulgence brighter than the sun, and they're all looking and thinking, wow. And they're thinking about his activities. He doesn't just study Vedanta. How did he get to that state? They think he's Narayan, and that everybody's Narayan eventually. And so they're assuming that Lord Chaitanya has become Narayan himself. And so they're very attracted. It says that he manifested the ecstatic symptoms, actually, of devotional service. And so these are very attractive to people in general. This is what attracts people to devotional service. When a devotee they see a devotee experiencing a different type of life. This is the biggest preaching. I remember when I was, I may have told this story before, but I was at home minding my own business, and I got a shout from the other room, and it was my dad. He was saying, "Come and have a look at these." And so I went in the other room, and I looked at the television. There was the Hare Krishnas dancing on the television. It was Rath Yatra. It must have been 1970, in the middle of the street. I said, "Where do they come from?" He said, "They come from India." I said, "They're white. How can they come from India?" And so we were arguing this point. And he says, "Anyway, wherever they come from," he says, "this is real religion, son." I said, "How do you know?" He says, "Because they're all happy." So this is what people are looking for. This is real dharma, real religion. And actually that struck me. I never really took an interest. I thought it was very attractive, but I thought that what he mentioned was very true. Previously I'd gone to Sunday school, forced to go to Sunday school, forced to listen to religious instruction classes, ask questions, never got an answer. And I just thought, this is enough, And but then when I saw the devotees, I thought there must be something in this. But anyway, I carried on with my own way of life, and many years later I got a science of self-realization and started to follow it. But it never left me, that vision of seeing devotees on the television similarly, I was assuming they were experiencing ecstatic symptoms. It seemed like that. I remember thinking that you don't see anybody doing that in this material world, what they're doing. You just don't do that sort of thing, do you? But they were. And so this is the difference. When somebody is showing ecstatic symptoms, it's an unusual thing. And this is what attracted Prakshananda Sarasvati Thakur. And so, of course, he started to ask him questions, and now Lord Chaitanya is answering those questions. You know, why are you dancing like a madman? Why did you so elevated? Come and associate with us. My spiritual master said, I'm not qualified. He said, I'm not qualified to read Vedanta. I'm just a fool. And so it made them think, you know, what does it make us? He's more elevated than us. So Lord Chaitanya was putting the thin end of the wedge in. He was starting to indirectly preach to them. So this is the way in the age of Kali. We have to preach like that, indirectly. It's very difficult to do it directly, because people generally can't take it. The ego has become so inflated. Anyway, we're going off the point a little bit, but so this is what we're looking for. We're looking for prema pumartha mahan, pure love of God. And so we get this by what does Nectar of Devotion explain? If we can please the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then there's nothing else that remains to be done. If we can please Krishna, then we achieve perfection. But even more than that, I was thinking, how do we please the Supreme Personality of Godhead? Who knows how to please Him? And this is devotee. His devotees, and we're following in the footsteps of the acharyas in our disciplic succession. Especially we follow Srila Prabhupada and his disciples. So our aim is, Guru Vastakam prayer says that we, you know, if by pleasing the spiritual master, then there's all auspiciousness. And if we don't please him, then we can't expect auspiciousness in our life. So the goal of life is to not necessarily please Krishna directly, although we do if we do the right thing, but to please his devotee, pleasing Srila Prabhupada. And then I was thinking, how do we please Prabhupada? There's so many ways to please Prabhupada, so many different services. You know, we tend to be fighting on heap to try and please Prabhupada, treading on one another. But we're pleasing Prabhupada, is that right? What do you think? You know, Prabhupada, no, he says, it's just like a father. Is he pleased when his sons fight? He's not pleased. He likes to see them cooperating. So we please Prabhupada by that famous quotation just before he left his body. How do you please me? Please me by, your love for me will be shown. We'll have to prema, don't forget. Your love for me will be shown by how you cooperate after I've left. And so this is a big challenge of this movement, is to learn the art of cooperating. In other words, we have to have a common goal. If we can just think before we do anything, maybe we can just try this. I mean, we don't have to use this particular, this is just one way that, are my activities cooperating to please Prabhupada? Or am I maybe doing my own thing separately? It may be an activity which would please Prabhupada, but it may not please Prabhupada unless it's cooperating with the rest of ISKCON. Because what was Prabhupada's mood? We've got to understand, to please Prabhupada, we have to understand his mood. We're coming to the point of the verse soon, don't worry. So, we have to understand what's Prabhupada's mood? Has anybody got any idea? Compassion, Danya. I know that's Daya. Yeah, compassion. But when we say this verse, Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutle Swayam Rupa Karamayam Dadati Sva Badandikam. We say that, a lot of devotees say it before class, we've just said it all together. And so it means, when will Srila Rupa Goswami, who has established in the material world the mission to fulfill the desires of Lord Chaitanya, give me shelter under his lotus feet. So that our desire is to fill the mission of, our mission is to fill, or Prabhupada's mission is the same as Rupa Goswami's. We're Rupa Anugas, so to fill the mission of Lord Chaitanya, fulfill that mission. So to preach cooperatively, that's what Prabhupada wants. And so we don't have to do anything extraneous. We're talking about these ecstatic symptoms. And sometimes we hear these different philosophies come in that we have to do so many things. But, you know, when Prabhupada was talking to Tamal Krishna Goswami, he said, I want to die fighting, you know, translating Srimad Bhagavatam. Because previously, Tamal Krishna had asked him about, you know, retiring and writing books, and that samadhi comes eventually in a devotee's life. And yes, Prabhupada said, yes, this is for advanced devotees, but I want to carry on translating Srimad Bhagavatam and preaching. And so Tamal Krishna says, well, what about us then? We're not on that platform. He says, yes, you understood. So we just have to carry on with what we're doing. Everything will be actually taken care of in due course of time. In the Nectar of Instruction, there's one, verse 8. This is a very nice book, Nectar of Instruction. It says, by chanting the holy name, one develops a relish on the tongue, and eventually one advances to the point of pure love of Godhead. And in that particular purport, Prabhupada explained about the different stages of devotional service that we go through. And he says, first of all, there's Shravana Das. He says this is what Shravana Dasa, actually it says, Shravana Dasa. We start hearing about Krishna, and then a devotee, by constantly hearing about Krishna, he can come to the point of becoming very, very fixed in devotional service. And so that next stage is called, what's that next stage? Can anybody remember? Varanadasa. Acceptance. So I was thinking about this acceptance. How do we put it into our lives? Then I remembered one verse from the Bhagavad Gita, where Prabhupada's talking about Maharaj Kulashekar. Maharaj Kulashekar, he was given the duty of fighting for the demigods for many thousands of years. And then at some point they became satisfied with him and said, okay, now you can return to the earth planet. We'll give you one benediction. What would you like? And he said, I want the benediction of knowing when I will die. And he said, you will die in a few moments. And Prabhupada writes in the purport that, so he immediately surrendered to Krishna. This is acceptance. And Prabhupada writes in that purport, it's just a matter of Maharaj Kulashekar surrendered in a moment. It's just a matter of accepting the fact. I thought, what's the fact? I'm looking through. Then I read the few previous verses. Krishna's God. And we're his servant. It's as simple as that. To actually surrender to that I'm the servant, and follow that line. And so then this is Varanadas. What other stages of acceptance are there? We accept Shastra. We act dutifully. Acceptance of Shastra, acceptance of the instructions that come through disciplic succession. This means ultimately that what mode of nature are we working in when we do that? Goodness, yeah. The difference between passion and goodness is that we do what we need to do as a duty. We don't necessarily like it. And therefore we rise above cheating, kapatya, cheating propensity. We cheat ourselves and we cheat others when we're in this mood of passion. So coming to the mode of goodness is by this acceptance, accepting what we need to do. It's not always so easy. And then we come to the stage when acceptance is a gradual stage, actually, a progression. I was thinking there's one verse. Has anybody heard there's 6 stages of surrender? This is the different stages of acceptance, isn't it? Accepting those things which are necessary which are actually good for advancement. Rejecting those things which are not very good for advancement or counterproductive. What's that? Anukulyasya sankalpa, patikulyasya varjanam, rakshishotiti vishvaso, goptripte varanamdata, atmanirkshepa, karpanye, tadvidam sharanagati. So first one is accepting things favourable. So we start to accept We may not accept Krishna as the Supreme Personality of God completely, we may be some doubts, but we accept the process. And then we avoid we're doing this when we follow the principles of devotional life. And then, Rakshi Shotiti Vishvas, we accept Krishna as our protector. This is an ongoing thing, isn't it? Will Krishna protect me in this situation? What do you think? We look at that. Will Krishna protect me in this situation? It's a constant, I don't know about this one. And then we go forward. And so it's like, and same with maintenance. Next one is Goptrip Te Varanam Tata. Will Krishna maintain me? This is a very big one. He already says in Bhagavad Gita many times he'll maintain us. But we still tend to have that independent nature that we're thinking we maintain ourselves. So it's a gradual acceptance, a leap of, it's what we call, when we read Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada says we should accept Bhagavad Gita as being true before we start reading it. He says that right at the beginning. Don't think, I'm not going to accept this in that frame of mind. I'm going to challenge it. We accept it as being true even though we're not 100% philosophically convinced. So there's always, in devotional service, is what? A leap of faith. There's always that, this is a bit too much. Go on, I'll go for it. And then we get realization. And then we come to the stage where there's a nice point in the Bhagavad Gita where it says, it's about Lord Ramachandra. The devotees, he says, as soon as the devotee says to me, what does he say? Anybody remember? Hey? Yes, I'm completely surrendered to you. What's the term it uses? Hey? No, what's the English? Hey? From this day I am yours, that's right. And what does Lord Chaitanya say? That's it, okay. And now from that day forward you're my ward and I give you complete protection. But it has to come from the heart. It has to be a gradual process. Not unless we like Maharaj Kulushekhar, we can do it immediately. Maybe in his situation, maybe some devotees would. What do you think? Few moments to live. And we'd be surprised what we came out with. Okay, anyway. So then I thought I would talk a little bit about... then we come to the point of Smaranadas. I'm not talking too much about these different ecstatic symptoms because I don't know much about them, So we'll build up to that eventually. So then, Smaranadas. This means... So Smaranadas comes in according to next of instruction. We may be able to identify with these different levels. There's 5 stages. One is remembrance. This is one stage. But that remembrance may be intermittent. Occasionally we remember Krishna. And then it becomes more and more constant remembrance. And then it comes to absorption in Krishna. So this is quite an elevated point to become absorbed. And then from absorption we come to meditation on Krishna. One thing to be absorbed in something, but to actually meditate on it is another. I gave the example, I think it was the night before last, we were at the... when I go over to visit my mother, usually when I walk in there, there's a, sound of the television. And I have to get by that first room, where the television attracting me, try and walk by and get into the next room so that I'm safe. Because I know, once I look around and look at that, it's like, and you can be there for so long without even realising it. And I was thinking, when I read this verse, this is like the material samadhi, isn't it? Immediately, you don't have to go through all these stages. You can just become completely absorbed within seconds. Why? Why is that? Because we've practiced. We've practiced. We've got used to it. We've become absorbed. Devotional service, it may be difficult now for us. But if we keep practicing, it says that when we hear Krishna's name, we'll be there. Anyway. So samadhi, this is what we're looking for, complete absorption. Then I thought we'd go on to the Madhuri Kadambini for a little while. Madhuri Kadambini explains the process, and it starts with, Shraddha to Prema, and up to the first four processes are like the practicing the sadhaka bhakti. We're practicing what is it? Faith, then association, practicing, initiation, and then we very quickly we get rid of hopefully very quickly we should get rid of the anarthas which are holding us back. And then by practicing devotional service, we come to the stage of Nishta. So I thought we'd start at Nishta, because at Nishta we start really making progress in devotional service and feeling some reciprocation. We're getting reciprocation all the time, but it starts to really become so attractive. We're not fixed on material things anymore. It's a very advanced stage, but we're just completely conscious of trying to serve Krishna. This is at Nishta. Then we realize, what do we realize at Nishta? We realize that there's no difference between Krishna and his holy name. We're two aspects of Krishna. When we're chanting, have we got any Nishta bhaktas here? Realize there's no difference between Krishna and his holy name. Maybe. And then we come to Nishta. There's two, just before Nishta, there's Anishta. We may be in one of those two, Anishta or Anishtita Bhakta or Nishta Bhakta. It says the difference is that it's explained in Srimad Bhagavatam. It gives all the systems of, all the symptoms of Anishta Bhakta, which we'll not go through now. How we're attracted to so many material things when we're chanting, and how we're up and down in our enthusiasm. And how sometimes we think, should I get married or shall I stay brahmachari? The mind's completely all over the place. But then, he says, by hearing, Shrimvatam Svakata Krishna, with a pure heart, Punya Shravana Kirtana, Vidyant Stahya Bhadrane, Virunati Saritatam. He says, then the heart, if we're sincere, then the heart very quickly becomes purified. Virunati Saritatam. It says that this is called the stage between Nishta and Anishta, just by this constant hearing process. And then we come to Nasta Prayeshu Bhadreshu. All the things in the heart are purified away. And so this is it says Anishta Bhakti. I'll give some, see if we can recognize these Anishtita Bhakti. If we can't recognize these, then we're okay. He says Laya, sleep, has a tendency to sleep in progressive stages of, first one, more advanced is we may sleep in japa, nod off. Or in Bhagavatam class, we nod off. And then a more neophyte stage, we sleep in kirtan. No. And I can't understand this one. And then I was thinking, I heard one pastime where Mahavishnu Swami, they were working, Prabhupada was visiting the manor, and he was thinking, I definitely don't want to miss Prabhupada, but they were working so hard day and night to get the manor together, make it just nice when Prabhupada arrived, and he was falling to sleep on his feet. And so he thought, no, I'm going to see Prabhupada. I'm not going to be asleep when Prabhupada arrives after all this. And so he got in the kirtan, which was greeting Prabhupada, and he was jumping in kirtan and he was falling asleep in mid-air. He couldn't keep his eyes open. Anyway, so what we got to? We got to Nishta Bhakta. So there's two qualities of Nishta Bhaktas. How do we understand who's a Nishta? What do we look for? Steadiness. What else? Gravity. I'm not sure about that one. Gravity. Good qualities, it says, actually. It says the good qualities that one develops. It's also mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam that we can tell the advancement of a devotee is by the nectar which comes from his mouth, which means he's developing good qualities. He's not blaspheming other devotees. He's speaking about Krishna and his behavior, obviously, but he's steady in devotional service. And he says that of the two, which is the most important? Steadiness. It said so in this verse. What I was reading. Was it in here? Yeah, it says here, look. sometimes a person who melts and manifests these transcendental symptoms, yet at the same time is not well behaved in his personal transactions. So, even though we may not be exhibiting good qualities, if we're steady, it means the good qualities will very soon manifest. And so we see that quite often because we're coming from backgrounds which have engaged us in so many untoward activities, we tend to carry them over into devotional service. But Prabhupada said that, we shouldn't criticize devotees if they're fully engaged in devotional service. Those black spots on the moon it talks about, they'll soon go away. Then very quickly we come to the point of ruchi. He says, but once we get to nishta, devotional service becomes very efficient. Ruchi, we get a taste. What's the symptoms of a person who's in ruchi? How can we differentiate? He says that he's more attracted to devotional activities, serving Krishna, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnum, Smaranam, Padasevam, than anything else. Nothing else is anywhere near as important as those things. He says, but also there's different stages of ruchi. One stage is that he likes to hear kirtan. When it's sweet, and the harmonium's on time, and the kartals are on time, and the mridanga's playing sweetly, then he's in ecstasy. He says, but the higher stage of ruchi is when it may not be on time, it may not be so sweet, but he's still attracted to the holy name. So he's more attracted to just the vibration of the Hare Krishna mantra. And then from ruchi, we come to, what's the next one? Ashakti. So this is a very important stage. He says, previously we've been coming attached to the Vaidhi sadhana bhakti. We're sadhakas. We're not raganuga bhaktis or ragatmika bhaktis. We're following the process of rules and regulations. So at this stage, by following those rules and regulations, we come to the stage of ragatmika bhakti. I'm just trying to find out. In other words, it mentions in the Madhurya Kadamini the symptoms of a ragatmika bhakta, and it describes as a day in the life of a ragatmika bhakta. I think I've read this before. Can anybody remember? Shall I read it? This is just before Bhava. Let's have a look. Early in the morning, seeing another devotee, he'll begin talking. Where are you coming from? You have perhaps a shalagram shila in your lovely case hanging from your neck. Chanting softly, your tongue is quivering at every moment by tasting the nectar of Krishna's name. I don't know why you're giving your darshan to an unfortunate person like me and making me joyful. Tell me about all the holy places you've visited. Describe all the saintly souls you've met and what realizations they've blessed you with. You're perfect in yourself and others also. In this way you'll pass some time drinking nectar in intimate talks. And then it goes on to speak about, here's a devotee's explanation of what is read in one particular scripture, and his hair stands on end just hearing him speak about Krishna from the Shastras. And then he'll meet a very advanced devotee, and he'll just serve him like a menial servant, even though he's advanced himself. And then, well, how do other people see him? A devotee will see him as being very, very fortunate. He'll recognize these symptoms. But he says that at times he'll remain in his house like a very wealthy but miserly merchant, greedy for treasure. Where shall I go? What shall I do? How will I get my hands on my desired object? With a worn face he'll be lost all day in thought like this, while dreaming, standing or sitting. When asked by his relatives, what's the matter? He'll sometimes act like a mute, and at other times, feigning normality, he hides his inner feelings. His friends will apologize. Recently, he's become scatterbrained. His neighbors will conclude he's an idiot by birth. The followers of Mimamsa philosophy Like Jaimini will think him a fool. Those who study Vedanta will consider him illusioned, and so on and so on. In other words, materialistic persons cannot recognize. Those offenders will say he's a pretender, but that devotee, oblivious to honour and dishonour, having fallen into the current of the great celestial river of attachment to the Lord, as Shakti, simply continues in the same manner. So his all day is just thinking about, the goal of his life. That's a Shakti. He's not just attached to a particular service or a way of doing things. He's actually completely attached to the 9 processes of devotional service and applying them in his life. And then we come to this stage which Lord Chaitanya exhibited, the bhava stage. This is what it's speaking about. These are about perspiration, trembling, standing on end of one's bodily hairs, tears, faltering voice, fading complexion, madness, melancholy, patience, pride, joy and humility. I'll open the computer because then it goes into a little bit of detail about the practical application of bhava. Practical application of bhava. 9 symptoms of bhava. The devotee is tolerant and unperturbed even when faced with very distressing situation. That means determination. Nothing phases him. He is averse to wasting time. Utilizes all his time in the Lord's service. He is prideless. Has complete conviction that he will attain the Lord's lotus feet. That's pretty good, isn't it? Confidence. He knows he's going to get there. There's no doubt. Extremely eager and anxious to attain perfection. That means there's no longer, sometimes we tend to put things off, don't we? I know I should deal with this, but I'll keep it for a rainy day, It's just too difficult to deal with at the moment. But a person who's on that platform is just wanting to completely get rid of any trace of materialistic behaviour, or what he thinks is materialistic behaviour. He has complete conviction. Where are we? He has acquired a taste for chanting the holy name, a strong attachment for hearing and speaking about the pastimes and attributes of Lord Krishna. He has no interest in anything that is not directly linked to Krishna. He has developed love for the places of Lord Krishna's pastimes. Scriptures say that one who has developed these symptoms is on the threshold of entering into the full stage of bhava. And then from bhava, we experience bhava in the mind. This is the difference between prema and bhava, according to what I've understood from Madhuri Kadambini. It starts talking about how he's going through so many symptoms, but he's seeing Krishna in the mind. Krishna's sometimes there, sometimes not, and he's getting all these ecstatic feelings from that type of reciprocation. But then it explains prema, what a devotee goes through in prema. And I can't remember them all, but if you've got some patience, I can also read that. What do you think? When he changes from bhava to prema. So don't forget, bhava is in the mind, and prema is starting to become realizing Krishna directly. It's called the 8th shower of nectar. Here we are. So there's different levels, and I'll read them. First of all, he experienced Krishna's beauty, then his fragrance, then his pleasing voice, then his tenderness, then his tastiness and generosity and compassion. Finally, his compassion. So the Lord first revealed his beauty, Saundarya, to the eyes of the utterly astonished devotee. The sweetness of his beauty makes all the senses and mind become like eyes to see the Lord. The resulting symptoms of ecstatic love, such as tears, shivering and being stunned, cause the devotee to swoon in ecstasy. To revive him, the Lord next reveals his fragrance, Saurabhya, to the nostrils of his devotee, and all the devotee's senses and mind take on the quality of the nose to smell. As the devotee starts to swoon a second time, the Lord says, "O my devotee, I am fully under your control. Please don't be disturbed. Just realize me to your full satisfaction. The Lord thus discloses his pleasing voice, so svarya, to the ear of his devotee, and as before all the senses become like ears to hear. As his devotee swoons a third time, the Lord mercifully gives him the touch of his lotus feet, hands or breast, revealing his delicate softness, so kamarya. According to the different rasas of the devotee, to those in the mode of servitorship, dasya, he touches his lotus feet to their heads. To those in the mood of friendship, sakya, he grasps their hands with his. For those in the mood of parental affection, vatsalya, he gives the touch of his hands by wiping away their tears. For those in the conjugal mood, prayasi, he awards his tender softness by embracing them to his heart with his long arms. Again the devotee's senses all take on the sense of touch to feel his softness. At the start of the fourth swoon, the Lord restores him by giving him his fifth madhurya, the taste of the nectar of his lips, saurasya. But this he reveals only to those who at this time are in the mood of conjugal love and desires this, but not to others. The devotee's senses all take on the sense of taste, and he faints for a fifth time. This blissful swoon is so deep, the Lord can revive him only by bestowing his sixth quality, audarya, or generosity. Audarya refers to the state where all the Lord's qualities, beauty, fragrance, sound, touch and taste, forcefully manifest at once to the devotee's various senses. Then prema, understanding the mind of the Lord, increases to the utmost, and with it the keen hankering of the devotee. Prema becomes like a powerful moon in the heart of the devotee, presiding over the ocean of bliss and creating hundreds of waves. It causes an almost destructive friction in the devotee's heart among the competing tastes. At the same time, the presiding deity in the mind, the moon of prema, expands its power and allows the devotee to relish all the different tastes at the same time without conflict. One should not think that due to lack of single-mindedness, the devotee will be unable to relish the fullness of all various tastes. Rather, the senses attain the extraordinary, inconceivable, wonderful, amazing capacity to do the function of all the other senses, even more fully, savour the madhurya of Lord's beauty, pleasant voice, and other qualities. Mundane logic is useless in this inconceivable matter. What induces Krishna to do that, actually, he sees that the devotee he can't taste all these different tastes at once, and he's mad to taste all these things. And he's like, he gives the example of a chataka bird. You know, the chataka bird, it won't drink except from the rain that falls. It won't drink from the ground. And when it starts raining, he's flying about trying to catch all the raindrops. He says that's like the devotee. There's so much nectar there, he's just trying to take it all at once, and he can only get a little drop at a time. And so Krishna feels sorry for him, and he benedicts him with the ability to taste all the rasas at once. So this is prema. So Lord Chaitanya is giving a hint to the Mayavadi sannyasis that there's something beyond their mundane logic. There's something which is devotional service. It's not an affair of the mind or the intellect or the logic. It's an affair of the heart. In material life they'll say, oh, it's too sentimental, don't they? But in spiritual life, no. It's actually, that's the real thing. We're sentient beings. We have senses. We need to satisfy those senses. And so devotional service eventually satisfies the senses to the utmost. This is what we're looking for. So Lord Chaitanya is presenting this to the Mayavadi sannyasis, and they're attracted. So the more we go on reading about Krishna, the more about his attractive nature, the more we'll become convinced and attracted to those qualities. Not just theoretically, but practically. So we can stop there. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.